Hello there, the lore freak Kalena is here, and today we talk about the lore of the Shadowlands. More specifically, the loose ties in Shadowlands lore that should be addressed in patch 9.1 Eternity's End. Because Steve Denizer himself stated that Eternity's End will be the culmination of the story of Shadowlands, which, according to him, has been developed for years. I believe Legion, Battle for Azeroth, and Shadowlands were actually a single story arc, and so there is still much to answer of this almost 6 years long story built up in just a single patch. Let's take a look at them. We start with none other than Arthas. Yes, we have been hinted that we will see something about Arthas before Shadowlands ends, and they even show him as the victim during Afterlife's Bastion. In my opinion, Arthas doesn't have to be redeemed because he doesn't need a redemption. The main problem about him was that his right to be judged by the Arbiter has been stripped away. We should see how his story will end up during 9.2, and according to the recent raid testing for Anduin, we are likely to see a cinematic featuring Arthas, Anduin, Jaina, Uther, and Sylvanas at the end of the first week of the raid. So, just give us some Arthas. The second question that should be answered is what exactly Zovaal has done to be banished into the Maw. According to the Eternal Ones, Zovaal sought forbidden knowledge and defied the will of the First Ones. But neither the Primus, the Winter Queen, nor Crestia gave a clear explanation about what had exactly transpired before Zovaal was banished into the Maw. Why don't they show us what exactly happened? Maybe that's because what actually transpired was not exactly the same as what they wanted us to believe. Before going any further, I need to point that one of the questions we had in mind was recently answered. Spoiler warning, what broke the Arbiter was Argus's word soul, so this mystery has been explained. Another mystery that must be explained is the mystery of Elun herself. At the moment, she is the longest remaining mystery in Warcraft lore for almost 20 years. If you have been following me for a while, I am sure you have heard of our first ones, Elun and Void Lord theory. So, according to it, this is just the time for Elun to show up the ending of the upcoming raid. The Void Goddess has to make her appearance at long last, and by making an appearance, I mean literally, to witness her beauty. We also have the Nathrezim lore, which, in my opinion, is the best piece of lore in the Shadowlands story. Undoubtedly, Sire Denatrius' true ambitions were more than just ruling the Shadowlands. He wants to make death, according to our theory, the imprisoned First Ones, the ultimate conqueror of all the other cosmological forces. We know Mal'Ganis will be one of the 10 ultimate bosses of the upcoming raid, so it's time to give us more Nathrezim lore. Also, I should mention this, no matter what happens with Zovaal, Sire Denatrius and his Nathrezim will be one of the key pieces of the story in the expansions ahead, which would be welcome news for me. I would also like to see the inevitable and yet glorious return of Sargeras and Illidan, and they would be the one, or Sargeras himself, who defeats Zovaal in the final cinematic, if Zovaal should be defeated after all. As you know, Sargeras is in some kind of titanic love with the world soul of Azeroth. I will talk about my speculations about what can happen during the ending cinematic of the upcoming raid in detail in another video. Also, the sword in Silitus should finally be used in some kind of action by either Sargeras himself or Zovaal, as Denizure stated that the sword will have a purpose to serve in the future. If not now, when? The final battle for Azeroth is about to happen as the story reaches its climax. Blizzard should also answer the entire mystery surrounding Odin, Helya, the actual deal between Sylvanas and Helya, and what exactly Loki's final words were. The secrets in the story of Helya and Odin and its own culmination can be the one of the breaking points that will lead to the end of all things. Also, Loki's final words, which actually we still did not hear about. Zalatath asked us to mention them to Odin back in Legion, and Odin almost killed us for only we had asked something. We will talk about the whispers of Zalatath in detail soon. Also, the obvious connections between Death and Void should also be mentioned, if even briefly. For example, the clear link between Legion expansion and the Shadowlands expansion, using the Maw of Souls and Harboron. I have speculated about how Harboron and Maw of Souls gave us breadcrumbs about Shadowlands before, and I will make a separate video for it as well soon. A Celestial being Harboron, a blood debt collector, and someone who knows one or two about the cosmic flow. And surprisingly enough, we will see a constellar boss in the upcoming raid as well, just before facing Zovaal himself. The final pieces of the story that in my opinion must be addressed are giving the Arakoa and the Drast some love. I will also publish another speculation video that will cover the connections between the Drast, Yogg-Saron, Zovaal and Elune. But long story short, the fact that the Drast becoming the Drast in the first place was because of the corruption of the Emerald Nightmare inside Turos, which was an offshoot of the Emerald Nightmare. Then, Yogg-Saron used the Drast to invade Ardenweald, the most vulnerable point of Shadowlands, and the Drast can wield the power of Death and Void magic both at the same time. For the Arakoa, it's kind of a similar story. For almost a year, I have been saying that the Arakoa was actually one of the most knowledgeable races about the Shadowlands among the mortal races we have encountered. They can pierce through the veil surrounding our eyes by simply creating some special potions. They talk about the shadow of their Raven God, and they name their sites with Veil. For example, Veil Sheanor, Veil Resk, Veil Race, or Veil Litik. At this point, it's unlikely to see the Arakoa directly involved in 9.2, but I expect, or at least hope, to seeing them have been mentioned in one of the upcoming chapters of the story, one way or another, because they, in my opinion, they deserve it. So, that's all for this one. I will cover some loose ends I have mentioned here in detail, one by one soon, so we have much to talk about. If you have something to add about those loose ties of Shadowlands story that must be addressed, please let me know in the comments below. And if you like the content, be sure to subscribe so we can keep discussing about the Warcraft lore. Until next time, which is very soon, see you all.